I never thought that buying my dream home would turn into a battlefield. But the moment I moved into that fancy mansion, a woman from the HOA decided I was her personal enemy. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was a self-proclaimed queen of the block, and everyone called her Karen. From the very first day, her eyes followed me like a hawk. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't welcoming. She was measuring me, judging me, and looking for a weakness. I had worked hard for this mansion, years of sacrifice, blood, sweat, and late nights. This house wasn't just brick and stone. It was my victory, my dream, my proof that the struggle had been worth it. But to her, I was nothing but a target. She knocked on my door the second evening I moved in. No, welcome to the neighborhood. No, how are you settling in? Instead, she gave me a printed list of rules from the HOA. Her tone was sharp, her words colder than ice. "We have standards here," she said, with that smirk that screamed power. "If you can't follow them, maybe this isn't the right place for you." I remember standing there, holding her piece of paper, my boxes still unpacked, my heart pounding. All I wanted was peace, a home where I could breathe. But her eyes told me this was the start of a war. And believe me, she wasn't ready for the kind of storm I could bring. At first, I tried to play it cool. I didn't want trouble. I waved at her when passing by, even when she turned her face. I followed most of the silly rules, even the ones that made no sense. No trash cans visible. No cars parked overnight on the street. No decorations without approval. It felt less like a community and more like a prison with her as the warden. But the more I tried to keep peace, the more she pushed. It was like she could smell kindness and wanted to crush it. She left notes on my door about violations. She complained about the color of my curtains, claiming they disrupted the neighborhood aesthetic. Curtains! Can you imagine? She even tried to tell me what plants I could grow in my own yard. It wasn't about rules. It was about control. About reminding me that in her kingdom, I was just a tenant, not a king. And one night, after yet another threatening letter from her slipped under my door, I sat in my living room and thought, why am I letting this woman rule my life? That was the night I decided enough was enough. But let me tell you something. Life has a funny way of pushing you to the edge before showing you how strong you really are. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about standing up to bullies who hide behind rules. This was about taking back my freedom. The next morning, I walked outside with my head high. She was standing on her porch, sipping coffee, smirking like she had won. And that's when I gave her the look. Not of fear, not of defeat, but of challenge. She didn't know it then, but a battle she couldn't even imagine had already begun. Days turned into weeks, and her attacks didn't stop. She filed official complaints against me with the HOA. She gathered other neighbors like soldiers, whispering lies about me at community meetings. She wanted me gone. She wanted to break me. But what she didn't know was that my whole life had been a fight. I wasn't about to lose now. Every note she left, every insult she threw, every rule she twisted, it only fueled me more. I started digging, learning how the HOA worked, who had power, and what really went on behind closed doors. What I found shocked me. This wasn't about community. It was about money, control, ego, and Karen had built her throne on fear. That's when the idea hit me. What if I didn't just fight her? What if I beat her at her own game in a way she could never recover from? I kept quiet. I smiled when she insulted me. I acted like her little rules bothered me. But inside I was planning, watching, waiting. Because if Karen wanted war, I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to take everything she thought she owned. I'll never forget the day she told me, with that smug tone, "People like you don't last here. This block isn't for outsiders." Her words cut deep, but they also lit a fire inside me. She thought she had already won. But the truth was, she had just signed her own defeat. And so, I began the move that would change everything. I started meeting the neighbors one by one, not with anger, not with complaints, but with kindness, with truth. I listened to their stories. Many of them hated the HOA, but were too scared to speak. They told me about fines for silly things, threats for small mistakes, endless letters from Karen. I realized I wasn't the only one suffering. This wasn't my battle alone. It was a whole block silent pain. Karen thought she ruled with power, but in reality, she ruled with fear. And fear only lasts until someone stands up. So I decided to be that someone. I spoke to lawyers. I researched property values. I learned how HOA boards could be changed, how votes worked, and how money flowed. Every piece of information was like a weapon in my hand. And slowly, the plan formed. I wouldn't just survive Karen. I would remove her crown. And then, when the timing was perfect, I began to buy. At first, it was one house. A neighbor who was tired of Karen's drama wanted out. I made an offer. Then another house. Then another. Each deal was quiet. Each paper signed without Karen's knowledge. And every time I bought another piece of this block, my smile grew wider. She still walked around, barking rules, not knowing her kingdom was shrinking under her feet. She still threw her threats at me, not realizing the ground she stood on was no longer hers. And oh, the day she found out, that was the day the war ended. But before I tell you that explosive moment, let me ask you this. Have you ever been pushed so far by someone that you decided not just to fight back, but to rise so high they could never touch you again? That's where I was. And my next move would be something she could never forget. The day everything came crashing down for Karen started like any other. She strutted to the neighborhood, clutching her clipboard like it was a crown jewel. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but nothing could hide that smirk of hers. She barked at kids for riding bikes on the sidewalk. She scolded an old man for his improperly trimmed hedges. She even glared at me as I watered my lawn, like I was still her enemy. But what she didn't know was that the ground beneath her feet no longer belonged to her kingdom. It belonged to me. Weeks of planning, months of quiet deals, and countless late-night meetings had led me here. The neighbors who once lived in fear had slowly sold their homes, one by one. Some were tired. Some were done with the HOA nightmare. And when they saw me offering a way out, they didn't hesitate. Paper by paper, signature by signature, the block became mine. And the sweetest part? Karen had no clue. I'll never forget the look on her face when the truth hit. She showed up at my door again, waving another violation notice, claiming my yard lights were against HOA policy. She expected me to cower, to argue, to beg. But this time, I didn't. I just smiled, calm and steady. Karen, I said, my voice firm but smooth, I think it's time you sat down. There's something you need to know. Her smirk faltered for the first time. She hesitated, but followed me inside. I placed a stack of papers on the table, contracts, deeds, proof. One by one, I slid them across to her. With every page she flipped, the color drained from her face. These, I said, leaning forward, are the houses on this block, and they don't belong to the neighbors anymore. They belong to me. She tried to laugh it off, a shaky, nervous laugh that didn't reach her eyes. You're bluffing, she snapped. No one would sell to you. Check the records. I replied, steady as stone. They already did. And in that moment, the queen lost her crown. Her hands trembled as she pushed the papers away. Her voice cracked. You can't do this. This is my neighborhood. My rules. But her power was gone. The neighbors she had terrorized for years had chosen freedom. The board she once controlled was powerless against a majority owner, me. Every house she thought she ruled was now under my name. And the empire she had built on fear, it collapsed like a castle made of sand. For once, she had no words, no rules, no threats, just silence. I leaned back in my chair and gave her the same smirk she had given me that very first day. Karen, I said softly, you demanded my mansion, but now I own your entire block. Her jaw tightened, her pride shattered, and her reign ended right there. But let me tell you something deeper. This wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't just about beating Karen at her own game. It was about showing that bullies don't win forever. That no matter how strong they look, their power is built on fear. And fear breaks the moment someone decides to fight back. The neighbors who once hid behind closed doors started smiling again. Kids rode bikes without being yelled at. Gardens bloomed without approval. Families finally felt free to live. The block wasn't Karen's anymore. It was ours. And Karen? She tried to fight. Oh, she tried. She filed complaints with the city. She called lawyers. She even staged a meltdown at an HOA meeting. But the truth was stronger than her voice. She couldn't fight the fact that she no longer owned control. She couldn't fight the signatures, the contracts, the reality. Her empire was gone, and she had built it with walls so high that when they fell, she had nothing left. In the end, she moved away, quietly, without the drama, without the clipboard, without her crown. The queen had been dethroned. And me? I stood on the porch of my mansion, looking out at the street, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known since the day I moved in. I had not only protected my dream home, I had protected the dreams of everyone on that block. This victory wasn't just about real estate. It was about life, about standing tall when someone tries to crush you, about turning the tables when the world thinks you're powerless. Because here's the truth. Power isn't about fear. It's about freedom. And freedom comes when you refuse to bow. Now, I want you to think about this. Who is the Karen in your life? Who tries to control you, limit you, break you with rules, words, or fear? Maybe it's not a neighbor. Maybe it's a boss, a so-called friend, or even your own doubts. Whoever it is, remember this. You have more power than you think. And when you decide to rise, no one can stop you. So don't just survive. Don't just take it. Stand tall. Fight back. Take control of your story. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting. It isn't fighting. It isn't even arguing. Sometimes the best revenge is rising so high that the person who tried to break you can't even reach. And if a Karen ever tries to demand your mansion, buy her entire block.